You expect me to believe you're the manager?
Yes, officer. How can I help?
Then show me your ID.
I'm in my own store with my badge.
We got a call about a suspicious person.
Is it because I was organizing inventory in the back or just the wrong skin color for a manager?
Welcome to the Black Justice Channel. Body cams were meant to be the unbiased eyes of the law, but today they inadvertently expose a moment where justice is completely distorted. Buckle up for a heart-pounding encounter, where the color of a man's skin makes him the target of an unjust system. At 9:45 p.m. on a Friday night in Chicago's bustling South Loop, Officer Derek Hayes walked into Oak and Iron Bookstore expecting to investigate a routine trespassing complaint. What he didn't know was that the black man he was about to illegally detain wasn't a trespasser at all. He was Marcus Vance, the store's beloved general manager, who had poured his heart and soul into that building for 12 years and held a PhD in sociology from Northwestern University. The store's high-definition security cameras were recording every single second. Every spoken word, every biased assumption, every agonizing moment of public humiliation. And what unfolded over the next 18 minutes would rightfully cost Officer Hayes his career and force the city to pay out a massive $760,000 settlement. Before we dive into the deep end, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below. And if you believe that every human being deserves the right to simply exist and work without being harassed, hit that subscribe button because the audacity in this story is truly staggering. Oak and Iron Bookstore sits as a beacon of culture in the South Loop neighborhood, an independent literary haven that's been deeply woven into the community fabric since 1985. Picture 3 sprawling floors of literature, vibrant author events, passionate reading groups, and warm community gatherings. It's the kind of sanctuary where people lose themselves for hours, where staff recommendations are trusted like gospel, and where books are handed over with genuine passion. Marcus Vance, 41, had started at Oak and Iron as a part-time cashier. While fiercely grinding through his PhD at Northwestern, that was 12 long years ago, he had completely fallen in love with the rhythm of the work, the profound conversations with avid readers, the sheer joy of connecting a lost soul with the perfect book, and the beautiful diverse community that naturally formed around their shared love of literature. He earned his way up, promoted to section manager after 2 years, assistant manager after 5, and finally taking the helm as general manager 3 years ago. He oversaw a dedicated staff of 28 employees. He flawlessly managed massive inventories, complex scheduling, high-profile events, and vital community partnerships. Under his visionary leadership, he'd increased the store's revenue by a staggering 37% through innovative outreach. Marcus wasn't just a manager, he was an intellectual powerhouse. His doctoral dissertation had brilliantly focused on the socio-economic impacts of urban redlining on modern black communities. He'd published extensively in top-tier academic journals and was frequently invited to keynote major conferences. He could have easily secured a lucrative, comfortable, tenured professorship, but he deliberately chose the front lines of bookstore management instead. Why? Because he believed in democratizing knowledge. He wanted to make profound literature accessible to the everyday person on the street, not just privileged university students. He fought to create a sanctuary where marginalized authors were front and center, and where readers of every conceivable background felt an overwhelming sense of belonging. Under Marcus's guidance, Oak and Iron boasted one of the most culturally rich and comprehensive urban sociology sections in the Midwest. He transformed the space into a beating heart of black intellectual culture in Chicago. That fateful Friday night, Marcus was the closing manager. He had efficiently sent most of his exhausted staff home at 9 p.m. Just him and 2 trusted booksellers remained to tackle the final chores. Meticulously shelving returns, straightening the intricate window displays, and reconciling the cash drawers. Marcus was back in the dusty stockroom diligently checking inventory on a massive new shipment. He wore his standard professional attire, neat black slacks, a crisp button-down shirt, and the official Oak and Iron employee badge pinned to his chest, distinctly reading Marcus Vance, General Manager. At 9:30 p.m., one of his best employees, a young white woman named Sarah Jenkins, hurried into the back room looking highly distressed. "Hey Marcus, there's a woman out by the front registers demanding to speak to the boss. She's extremely worked up, claiming some guy has been aggressively following her around the aisles. She says she's terrified." Marcus let out a heavy, knowing sigh. Unfortunately, this wasn't entirely new. Occasionally, a customer's own deep-seated irrational biases would trigger an unwarranted panic, leading them to complain about another innocent patron who was merely browsing the shelves while black or brown. He calmly walked out to the main sales floor. The woman, later identified as Martha Higgins, was pacing near the front doors. She was white in her mid-60s and practically vibrating with agitation. When her eyes locked onto Marcus, her expression morphed instantly, from supposed terror into sharp, undeniable suspicion. "Are you the manager?" she demanded, her tone dripping with disbelief. Yes, ma'am. I'm Marcus Vance, the general manager. I understand you have a serious concern. How can I help you? Martha looked him up and down, visually auditing his worth. You're the manager. Since when? I've been the general manager for 3 years, and I've been helping run this store for 12 years in total. Well, someone has been stalking me through the store. Some black man lurking in the shadows, making me feel incredibly unsafe. Marcus felt a sickening, familiar drop in his stomach. The devastating reality of the situation washed over him. Ma'am, I have been alone in the back stockroom for the last 20 minutes. Was this individual out here on the main floor? I don't care where you claim you were. Someone was watching me, and I demand he be thrown out immediately. Marcus maintained his absolute professional composure, swallowing the bitter pill of her disrespect. Ma'am, our high-definition security cameras cover every inch of this facility. If someone was genuinely harassing you, we will immediately review the footage and handle it. But I assure you, the few customers we've had tonight have been quiet and respectful. I know exactly what I saw. I'm calling the police. That is absolutely your right, ma'am. But please understand that making false, racially motivated accusations against our patrons is something we take extremely seriously. Martha viciously jabbed at her phone screen, dialing 911. She hysterically reported to the dispatcher that she was currently trapped and being threatened by a dangerous man at Oak and Iron Bookstore, who was falsely impersonating the manager and aggressively refusing to protect her. Marcus stood rooted to the spot, forced to listen to this woman completely fabricate a reality designed to weaponize law enforcement against him. He had navigated America as a black man for 41 years. He knew the terrifying statistics. He knew exactly the kind of danger her lie was putting him in. As I watch this unfold, my chest physically tightens with a sickening mix of anger and sorrow. I analyze these encounters so thoroughly because we desperately need to dissect the anatomy of everyday casual racism. It's not always a burning cross in a front yard. Sometimes it is the terrifying entitlement of a customer who fundamentally refuses to believe a black man can hold a position of authority, coupled with an officer who blindly validates that lethal prejudice. It is absolutely devastating to witness a man's hard-earned sanctuary, a place he built with his own intellect and sweat, violated so casually and viciously. It breaks my heart, but it also fuels my demand for justice. Officer Derek Hayes arrived exactly 8 minutes later. He was 32, with 5 rocky years under his belt at the Chicago Police Department. He grew up in a heavily insulated, predominantly white suburb and brought his deeply flawed, media-skewed assumptions about urban danger straight into the city limits. His internal file was a glaring red flag: 7 serious complaints in just 5 years. Almost all of them involved unnecessarily hostile confrontations with people of color in affluent spaces, accusations of brutal force, illegal demands for identification, and aggressively escalating entirely peaceful situations. Hayes stormed into Oak and Iron Bookstore, his hand resting ominously on his duty weapon, sweeping the quiet literary haven as if he were entering an active war zone. He immediately spotted Martha Higgins by the register, looking entirely relieved at the sight of a uniform. And then he saw Marcus Vance, a calm black man in professional attire, standing tall with a corporate badge distinctly identifying him as the man in charge. In a fraction of a second, Hayes's biased brain made a catastrophic calculation. The distressed white woman was the undeniable victim. The black man, despite all visual evidence to the contrary, was the inherent threat. Officer Hayes deliberately marched right past Marcus without a single nod of acknowledgement, zeroing in directly on Martha. Ma'am, I am Officer Hayes. Dispatch said there was a dangerous disturbance. Yes, officer, I was simply trying to browse, and some man was relentlessly shadowing me, making me feel incredibly unsafe, and when I demanded management, this individual, she sneered, pointing a trembling finger at Marcus, falsely claimed to run the place and became extremely hostile. Hayes slowly pivoted toward Marcus. So you claim you work here? Marcus braced himself. The nightmare had arrived. Yes, I am the general manager, Marcus Vance. I have run this establishment for 12 years. General manager, huh? Hand over your physical ID right now. I am standing inside my own place of business. I do not need a state ID to do my job. What exactly is the problem here? We got a 911 call about a suspicious guy lurking in the back aisles. You fit the description perfectly. So let's see that ID before things get worse. Marcus felt the sickening hot sting of public humiliation swirling with righteous fury. Officer, I am literally wearing my corporate employee badge. It explicitly states my name and my title as general manager. My staff right here can instantly verify who I am. I am absolutely not surrendering my identification simply for existing in my own store. Hayes took a menacing step forward, attempting to use his tactical gear and physical height to establish dominance. I am in the middle of an active investigation. Produce your identification immediately. Investigating what exactly? I am the manager. I am working on the clock. There has been no crime committed here. Sarah Jenkins, who had been watching in absolute horror from behind the main counter, desperately spoke up. "Officer, please, that is Marcus. He is 100% the manager. He is our boss. He's been here forever." Hayes completely dismissed her existence. "Sir, if you refuse to comply and hand over your ID, I will be forced to detain you for obstructing justice." Obstructing what justice? There is zero investigation. A patron fabricated a malicious complaint because she is terrified of seeing a black man in a bookstore. That is not a criminal offense. That is blatant racism. And you are actively enabling it by demanding my papers, when I am clearly an employee wearing a name tag standing at my own registers. Your aggressive tone is making me believe she was absolutely right to call us. We are stepping outside right now. I am not going anywhere. I am working. I run this business, and you possess absolutely zero legal authority to force me out of my workplace. Hayes's hand swiftly dropped to his steel handcuffs. You are officially being detained for actively resisting a lawful police investigation. Marcus's voice echoed through the quiet store. What lawful investigation? What imaginary crime do you think happened here? Criminal trespassing. The caller stated you do not belong here and are refusing to vacate the premises. I do belong here. I am the general manager. My badge proves it. My staff just confirmed it. And you are deliberately choosing to validate a lying customer who is weaponizing her discomfort around black people. Hayes violently snatched Marcus's left arm. "Turn around and put your hands behind your back right now." Sarah Jenkins screamed from the register. "Officer, you cannot do this. He runs this store. This is completely insane." The other remaining bookseller, a brave young man named David Chen, immediately yanked out his smartphone and hit record. "I am documenting every second of this. This is completely illegal." Hayes glared at the glowing screen. "Put that device away right now or you are going to jail with him." David held his ground, his hands shaking but his voice steady. "No, sir. I have a constitutional right to film law enforcement in a public space." Marcus felt Hayes's grip crush his forearm. The pain was sharp and intentionally agonizing. "I am not resisting," Marcus announced loudly, ensuring the camera captured every syllable. "But I want the world to witness that I am being arrested simply for being a black man at my job. I am being physically detained because a racist patron lied to the authorities. And this badge-wearing officer decided her lies were more credible than my staff, my corporate badge, and basic objective reality." Hayes aggressively wrenched Marcus's arms behind him and violently snapped the cold steel cuffs shut. They were excruciatingly tight, the jagged metal immediately biting into Marcus's skin. He heard Sarah sobbing. He heard David's phone still capturing the horror. He heard Martha Higgins smugly whisper, "I just knew he was a criminal." Hayes shoved Marcus toward the glass exit doors. As they passed the front desk, Marcus shouted his final directives. "Call our owner, Claire Thompson. Tell her exactly what this officer is doing." Sarah locked down the registers. "David, do not stop recording for a single second." Hayes forcefully pushed Marcus out into the freezing Chicago wind. Dozens of pedestrians froze on the pavement, completely shocked. Several whipped out their own phones. Marcus lifted his chin, speaking directly into the crowd's lenses. "My name is Marcus Vance. I am the general manager of Oak and Iron Bookstore. I hold a PhD from Northwestern University. I have dedicated 12 years to this community. I am currently being abducted by Officer Hayes for the fabricated crime of working while black. This is malicious racial profiling. This is a gross abuse of power. Make this go viral. Watching this man be paraded out of his own sanctuary in handcuffs makes my blood boil. It is a visceral, agonizing reminder of how incredibly fragile success and safety can be for a black professional in America. I focus on this specific pain because the audience needs to feel the absolute indignity of being stripped of your hard-earned title and humanity in a matter of seconds." Marcus did everything society told him to do, got the PhD, worked his way up, wore the uniform, and none of it mattered the moment a biased officer decided his skin color was inherently criminal. It's not just a mistake, it's a systemic rot that shatters lives. Hayes yanked open the rear door of his cruiser and roughly shoved Marcus into the cage. The hard plastic seat, the overwhelming stench of stale sweat, the sheer suffocating humiliation of being locked in a police car. Marcus had never had a single negative interaction with the law in his entire life. Now he was caged like a violent offender for managing a bookstore. The agonizing drive to the South Loop precinct took a grueling 15 minutes in total silence. Marcus forcefully compartmentalized his terror, mentally logging every single timestamp, every threat, every procedural violation. As a black man in America, he knew his memory was his only shield. Inside the sterile station, Hayes paraded Marcus toward the booking desk. The desk sergeant, a sharp-eyed black woman named Lieutenant Olivia Grant, glanced up from her paperwork. The moment her eyes registered a professional black man in heavy steel cuffs, her entire demeanor shifted. "Hayes, what exactly is this?" "Criminal trespassing and resisting a lawful order. The subject was loitering at Oak and Iron Bookstore, refusing to leave the premises, and became highly combative during my investigation. Lieutenant Grant slowly stood up. With 22 years on the force, she possessed a razor-sharp instinct for catching rogue cops in their own lies. Oak and Iron, the massive independent bookstore down on the corner. Yeah. A frantic patron called 911 claiming this guy was aggressively stalking her while falsely impersonating the store manager. Lieutenant Grant bypassed the officer entirely and looked Marcus dead in the eye. "Sir, what exactly happened tonight?" Marcus took a deep breath, his voice unwavering. "My name is Marcus Vance. I am the official general manager of Oak and Iron Bookstore. I have managed that location for 12 years. I hold a doctorate in sociology from Northwestern. I was closing the facility tonight when a white patron decided she was terrified by the mere presence of a black man organizing inventory. When I politely introduced myself as the manager, she dialed 911. Officer Hayes arrived, blatantly ignored. My corporate name tag completely disregarded two of my employees who confirmed my identity, demanded my state ID, and violently arrested me for simply questioning why I needed to show papers inside my own business. Every second of this civil rights violation is captured on multiple high-definition security cameras and an employee's cell phone." Lieutenant Grant's face turned to absolute stone. Her voice dropped to a dangerous, icy whisper. "You violently arrested a business manager inside his own establishment. He was actively refusing to unlock those handcuffs this exact second." Hayes froze, his arrogant facade finally cracking. "I said right now." Lieutenant Grant's voice thundered through the precinct. "You arrested an innocent citizen for standing at his own job. Get those cuffs off him." Hayes fumbled with his keys, his arrogant composure completely shattering as his hands shook. He unlocked the cold steel. Marcus rubbed his deeply bruised wrists, feeling the raw, burning physical proof of systemic failure. Within minutes, the furious precinct commander, Captain James Miller, stormed into the booking area. Someone had briefed him on the catastrophic liability sitting in his lobby. "Dr. Vance, I am Captain Miller. On behalf of the entire Chicago Police Department, I offer my sincerest apologies. This is an absolute disgrace and should never have occurred." Marcus stood tall, his voice echoing with the exhausted weight of generations. "Your apology is noted, Captain. But Officer Hayes needs to comprehend that violently arresting someone for breathing while black at their own job isn't a procedural error. It is weaponized racism with a taxpayer-funded badge." Captain Miller whipped around to face Hayes. "You are stripped of your badge and suspended without pay, effective immediately. Empty your locker and get out of my precinct." Hayes's face drained of all color as the terrifying reality of his ruined career finally set in. Lieutenant Grant personally drove Marcus back to Oak and Iron Bookstore. When he walked through the glass doors, the store was still packed. His owner, Claire Thompson, along with dozens of fiercely loyal community members, had rushed down to form a protective barrier around the business. Claire burst into tears, wrapping Marcus in a desperate embrace. They were going to war. By dawn, David Chen's visceral cell phone video had completely shattered the internet. It amassed 15 million views in a single night. But the absolute knockout punch came when Oak and Iron released the high-definition internal security footage. The cameras showed exactly what happened. Martha, Higgins browsing peacefully, Marcus isolated in the back room, and Officer Hayes completely ignoring the truth to brutalize a black professional. But the cameras captured something even more damning. While Martha Higgins was on the phone with 911 hysterically crying about feeling unsafe around a black man, the pristine 4K footage clearly recorded her slipping two expensive hardcover art books directly into her oversized designer tote bag. She had weaponized the police to create a chaotic distraction for her own brazen theft. This is the exact moment where the universe delivers the ultimate poetic justice. I highlight this detail so heavily because it perfectly exposes the sickening hypocrisy of racial profiling. The woman crying wolf and weaponizing her fragile tears was the actual, literal criminal all along. It proves exactly why we must relentlessly document every single one of these encounters. Without those cameras, a brilliant black scholar would have had his entire life and reputation destroyed, while a privileged thief walked away playing the traumatized victim. It is a terrifying and raging reality, but seeing these oppressors face absolute, undeniable public ruin is profoundly satisfying. The public backlash was a tsunami. The Chicago Police Department backed into a corner by undeniable video evidence formally terminated Officer Derek Hayes just 3 weeks later. His police union, paralyzed by the overwhelming public fury, completely abandoned him. He was blacklisted from ever working in law enforcement again. As for Martha Higgins, her life as a respected socialite went up in flames. She was publicly paraded in handcuffs and charged with felony filing of a false police report and retail theft. She was permanently banned from the neighborhood and slapped with a devastating $10,000 fine. Marcus filed a massive federal civil rights lawsuit against the city and Hayes. The city's lawyers took one agonizing look at the footage and immediately surrendered. They settled for $760,000. Marcus took that blood money and established a massive, fully funded scholarship program specifically designed for young black students pursuing degrees in urban sociology and literature. Oak and Iron Bookstore didn't just survive, it thrived. Revenue skyrocketed as the entire city rallied behind them. Marcus Vance still manages the floor, his head held high. But he operates differently now. He forces his staff to ruthlessly document every racially motivated complaint. He stands as a living, breathing testament to the fact that credentials will not protect you from racism, but unyielding truth and a recording camera can absolutely destroy the people who try to break you. Thank you for staying with me through this infuriating but ultimately triumphant journey. What is your biggest takeaway from this insane abuse of power? Have you ever had to fight to prove you belonged in your own space? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you believe exposing these injustices is the only way we force society to change, hit that subscribe button. We will never stop holding these systems accountable. See you in the next one.